Now we open the floor to your comments and questions. Anybody would like to take the first shot? Yes, sir. The microphone will come to you.
Thank you, Minister Mentor, for joining us this afternoon. I'm Robert Dixon from the World Bank Group. Question for you, maybe some advice. China, the United States, India, responsible for about half the world's greenhouse gas emissions. We've been negotiating climate change agreements for almost 20 years. As we look forward to the negotiations, what advice would you have, based on your experiences, for the negotiators from these large greenhouse gas producers? Singapore has been a bridge between these cultures for many, many decades. And what advice would you have for us, those of us negotiating? Thank you.
I do not believe there will be sort of, seeing the light on the road to Damascus. The last international meeting was in Bali, and the Indians and the Chinese reserved their positions, as they must do, even as a bargaining tactic. But the Chinese want to experiment with the eco-city in Tianjin shows that they realize that this is something in the middle term they have to seriously consider. And after this Beijing Olympics, it may be nearer than the middle term. I do not sense that urgency in India yet, because their consumption is even lower, because 75–80% of the people are farmers and in the countryside, and they're not into the oil and gas stage, and their industrialization is also very low. That growth has been on the high-tech industries, IT, outsourcing, and so on, because the infrastructure has not been built up. But they're going to build up the infrastructure, and over the next 10–20 years, they will build up their industries, and they'll do exactly what China is doing. I think there'll have to be a series of meetings, and each time, reluctantly, they'll be dragged into committing themselves to targets which they hope will not be too high for them, and maybe they will exceed, and then they'll be rebuked or fined or whatever it is, and they'll go on. The penny will drop only when they see the consequences for them, as Europe has seen. I mean, the Europeans have not become that sensitive, but just because the world was going to change. They were changing in a way that scared them. I lived in Britain for 4 years, immediately after the war, and it was an equable climate. You can predict Mediterranean, you get this climate. You go to the north of France, you get that climate. You go further north, it's cooler. But now, it's so different. And it scares the Germans when you have floods. Americans are less panicked, because they've always had tornadoes, hurricanes, so what? And you declare a disaster area, and there are enormous resources. The insurance companies pay up. You buy a new home. But now the insurance premiums are going up, and in some parts of the country, I think the insurance will not be available. Then slowly, gradually, they will also feel the spurs to do something about it, I hope. It's a slow process. If it can happen within 20 years, we'll be lucky.
Today, in the afternoon, Minister Mentor, many of the participants lamented the lack of political will among the leadership in many countries to deal with this problem. So this is something that we have to really work on.